there. So this is my talk on ADHD, autistic burnout. I hope you can hear me because apparently my I can be a bit quiet, and that must be really frustrating. I'm not normally quiet in my real life. Obviously, the way I kind of format my videos is I just want to have a conversation with you. I don't want to be standing on a podium or but I'm just a person who's autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, and a few other things. So I just want to talk to you about a talk I did on an ADHD, autistic burnout, and hopefully some of it will be helpful for you. I've got an itinerary as well. And there'll be room down below, isn't there, for questions and for us to discuss it, what we think, what we feel. I think it's about 20 minutes long, maybe 25, might be shorter, because I did add a little bit before. So if you want to get a cup of tea or watch it in goes, I'm sorry, because I can't watch a video for longer than 5 minutes, to be honest, with my ADHD. I like quick, sharp, fast information. I'm going against it. It's a funny old thing, isn't it? So the itinerary is, it's an introduction where I introduce myself and go through what we will talk about. Then there's a brief description of ADHD and autism. What is an ADHD autistic burnout? What are possible causes? How should I process this as I'm a person that is not autistic or ADHD? Just some of the impact on the autistic ADHD individual from burnouts. Some examples of what the person experiencing this may feel. What are some of the signs of burnout is coming or of burnout? What is not good for someone that is on the way to burnout or in burnout? How long can a burnout last? So what can we do to support, prevent and reduce the effects of burnout? What if I recognise some of what has been said today and I'm not diagnosed ADHD or autistic? The way forward, is there light at the end of this burnout tunnel? And then a conclusion. So I'll start doing my talk now for you. I already got it all mixed up and done this once already. But I don't do it lots of times because I'll be here forever. So, hi. Thank you for joining me today. I'm literally doing my talk. I'm Louise. I'm an autistic mentor and advocate. I'm autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, and a few other things. Today's talk is about ADHD, autistic burnout, and will last approximately 15 to 20 minutes. We'll see about that. Well, should do, but one of my traits is talking a lot, especially about a subject that interests me, which this is one of them. But be rest assured I have a script, and we'll try to stick to it for all of our sakes. So this is my perception of things and based on my living experience, and also collated with evidence-based studies, and I've taken some things off a website I found useful. I think it's 127 tips. I'm just going to read it exactly because I won't remember my brain. 127 best tips, ADHD burnout versus autistic burnout comparison. So it's only their description of 3 things. I thought was just good the way they explained it. It was concise, which I can't do. So as you can imagine, there is a lot to say about this, so I will be touching on the surface of this today. Also, it is and always will be an individual experience how it affects someone. Some will be affected by the autistic burnout, some by the ADHD burnout, or if you're like me, both of these affect me, which can make it more complicated. I said about questions here, but do that in the comments below if you wanted to. I also said, please let me know if I'm talking too fast, because I do that, and I apologise. My brain works fast. Depends on the situation. Or if I'm not loud enough, and I'm sorry if I'm not. Trying to be louder. So, let's begin at the beginning. I said it's a good place to start. In order to understand burnout, we need to include a brief description of ADHD and autism. Although burnout for both has similarities, it also has important differences and ways of managing, recognising and supporting them. So ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental condition characterised by difficulties with attention, hyperactivity and impulsivity. Individuals with ADHD often struggle with executive functioning skills such as organisation, time management and focusing on tasks. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects social interaction, communication and behaviour. Autistic people may experience sensory sensitivities, repetitive behaviours, and difficulties with social interactions. Autism can vary greatly from one person to another. So in short, what is an ADHD autistic burnout? I found a quote online. It said, "It is a state of chronic exhaustion, both physical and mental, typically caused by prolonged exposure to stressors." My description: if you see the brain as a living computer, it needs a certain kind of language and code to function and process information. If you press lots of buttons at once before it is ready, or use the wrong code, it won't recognize it. It could crash, shut down, overheat, or can go haywire. This is my burnout. So what causes this? So there are so many things that can cause this, and it's usually a culmination of quite a few. It starts with not knowing how to manage, recognise and look after an individual's autism or ADHD. Also, outside pressures of needing to conform and do things in an expected way and not tailored to suit the needs of an autistic or ADHD individual. Something a lot of us have done, tried to fit in. Why can't I do that? Why can they do this and I can't do that, without us being said, well, maybe you could find strategies and ways of doing it, but it might be a different way you need to do it. And not being hard on ourselves, which I think exacerbates burnout. Some possible causes are places that don't have reasonable adjustments. A person not knowing their own needs and how to recognise them, and what the start of a burnout looks like and how to act. That's not a judgment, by the way, because you don't recognise. It takes a little bit of time to recognise it's there because you've probably lived with it a long time. Being judged and too afraid to express needs, not working with a person's limits of ability, heavy workload, or just too much for that person and a short amount of time to do it. Multitasking and too many distractions, unrealistic expectations, too many changes in a day and not enough time to adjust, personal issues, not being able to prioritise and becoming overwhelmed, when someone has too many things to focus on and not time to see them through to completion, not having breaks when someone needs them, especially when that person has increased stress levels, and no time to regulate those emotions. No routines in place and lack of structure. Lots of noise and sensory things to process. Lack of sleep, not eating well, lack of exercise can exacerbate burnout. Also, negative self-talk and judgment from others can make it spiral, but also the self-talk and judgment we give to ourselves. So none of this is like me saying this is what you should be doing, because that's not fair. I don't mean it that way. I'm just saying when we haven't got a method of somebody to show us how to do those things, it's all very well listening, and you probably know yourself, but without the support of somebody to sit down with you and to help you work that out, how is this going to work for me? it's really difficult, and I do understand that. So none of that is a judgment. You haven't got that. Don't feel it's your fault or anything. It's, we can feel like part of it is part of our responsibility in some ways, but when we haven't been guided from kids, how are we going to know how to do any of this? And it's just another way of going, oh, I'm no good. Please don't feel that. It's just things I've noticed, and I can't manage all of these. I haven't worked out all of those things yet. I've done some of them, but not all. So as you can imagine, there are many other possible causes. How should I process this, as I'm a person that is not autistic or ADHD? So number one, this is unique to the autistic ADHD individual and should always be treated as so. When you see it, go with the individual's lead, and it's better to believe you know nothing. You should effectively start from scratch and learn from them. Some suggestions might be good, but it has to be done carefully because you could make it accidentally worse. Number two, it isn't attention seeking or something that will just go away without appropriate support or understanding. 3, just because you don't have this experience doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just some of the impact on the autistic ADHD individual from burnouts. Number 1, it negatively affects every part of daily life if not managed and cared for. Number 2, recovery time and intensity can vary depending on the individual and the stresses involved. Number 3, it can create difficulties with mental health, struggles with independent living, loss of self-belief, and affect relationships. Number 4, a much bigger likelihood of physical ailments and health issues. So for some people, it all depends. It's so individual, isn't it? So some people may just about manage to scratch on the surface of getting things right. And some people may be on a roller coaster of it. And you shouldn't feel bad about that because it's all individual how our brains work. Even putting things in place might make it difficult for you. So I hope you can be kind to yourself about it. Some examples of what the person experiencing this may feel. Being someone that has experienced burnout for many years, I know how lonely and scary it can be. I would like to see it not be that way. People with ADHD and autism deserve so much better. With understanding and education for us and for the people around us, I hope this can change. Knowledge is power. In a world of diversity, acceptance is key. So here are just a few words that can help us and others recognise how we may feel. It's still, I don't even know what I've written there. I don't know. So no judgment here. There. I don't really know what I was talking about there. That's quite common for me. So here are just a few words that can help us and others recognise how we may feel. Feeling stuck. Oh yes. Lost, confused, depressed, heightened anxiety, lethargy, suicidal thoughts, greatly reduced executive function, low self-worth, exhausted, guilty, ashamed, an inability to ask for support or know how to, loss of memory, brain going blank. As I always say to myself, computer says no. I need to hide away, lonely. As I say, these are just a few, and I should imagine the list is endless. I suggest writing down your list, or if you're supporting someone, help them write it or suggest it. But maybe not during or after a burnout, depending on the person. I just know that would be the wrong time to give me more tasks. It's different for everybody though, isn't it? Because maybe in the moment is when you remember and you're able to write them down. So it's all to you, but no pressure. What are some of the signs a burnout is coming or of burnout? In order to create a better life for someone with ongoing burnout, it's important to learn to recognise the signs before it goes into full burnout. Like I said, it's so important to realise not one size fits all when it comes to this experience, so sometimes trial and error is the only way to go. So signs of burnout are, this is what I had the other day. I saw it coming, so I had to take my foot off the gas, step back. It helped actually. Made me recover in about 3 days, I think. So signs of burnout can be increased meltdowns, lack of focus, agitation, extrasensory sensitivities, physical pain or headaches, physically shutting down, loss of speech, being tearful, emotional volatility, extra hyperactivity, extra impulsivity, withdrawal from activities, low motivation, reduced eye contact, alcohol and substance abuse. And the other one I haven't put on there, which I have, is insomnia, because it makes me have a heightened level, I think, of cortisol stress hormone. So then I can't sleep then. So, yay! And this is just a few. What is not good for someone that is on the way to burnout or in burnout? I've learned to recognise this in myself. I used to dismiss the signs because of growing up in a society that didn't, and still in places doesn't, understand it. I had the common phrases in my head that us ADHDers and autistics hear. Stop behaving badly. Why are you being a crybaby? So and so manages it. Why can't you? Pay attention. Unfortunately, this did have lasting effects on my internal dialogue and ability to recognise a path to burnout and acknowledge it and help it. I had to change my perception of me. So on the way to burnout or in burnout, these wouldn't be good. Well, not for me anyway. Dealing with social interactions, masking traits, sensory overload, suppressing stimming, a sense of not meeting expectations, gaslighting or dismissal when attempting to explain my feelings, or our feelings, insufficient external resources and support, inability to take a break from stress, past trauma and history of negative responses, changes in routine and structure. This is just some. They wouldn't be good. How long can a burnout last? Or how long is a piece of string? It can last hours, days, months, maybe a couple of years, depending on the individual. The stresses involved, the understanding around that person, and how much room is given to the individual to recover. If there are any underlying issues such as past traumas or health issues. Also, once there is a burnout, we can become more susceptible to them after recovery. Have you ever noticed that? It's like when an earthquake happens, there can be tremors and aftershocks. It can have a reoccurring thing. It can go back again. So what can we do to support, try and prevent and reduce the effects of burnout? As you can see, it's pretty important to find ways of doing this because of how negative it is for the individual and their quality of life. Once again, what works for one person might not for another. I could say so much here as it's unending, but here is a brief summary. Find out what your needs are. Often we can't work this out, so having the support of someone who can talk it through and write it down with us can really help. If you understand your triggers, you can then put in place strategies that may help you manage your stress levels and then the impact of burnout on your life. Is the job or place you attend right for you? Sometimes people see leaving a place of work or what they do as a failure, but sometimes it's this that needs to be part of the change. Is it neurodivergent friendly? Other than that, make sure you have breaks if you need them. Make sure you have reasonable adjustments. If possible, sometimes working from home can be allowed. Fidget toys and some apps like Brain in Hand can help manage some of the stress and lessen the reliance on remembering. Even small stresses, you see, add to another one. I don't dismiss the tiny ones now. if I got a label in my clothes, that's a stressor. And that's just going to add to my anxiety, which can make me lead to burnout. So I pay attention to the tiny things, which I suppose can be exhausting. But I try to tailor my world to help me. Can you read things and process it, or do you need it read out to you so you can understand it better? There's so many things on the market these days, luckily. Have a routine that is structured and within your limits. Learning to be honest with yourself about this will help you, and having the support of colleagues or people around you. Also, maybe consider applying for access to work, having a support worker and aides, because this is based in Britain now, so abroad I don't know what you have in place there, I'm sorry. This is what I have, and the reason I progressed at work is the only reason. Having someone in my corner that isn't judgmental, has ideas of how I should be, has really helped. Learn to say no, something I have struggled with and do still a bit. Sometimes doing jumping jacks during the day, or brisk walking, or you're stimming, spinning around, shaking your arms. On breaks can get rid of excess cortisol. Pacing, I think, works for me as well. Being kind to yourself and realising that ADHD autism is something that can be amazing but needs looking after with love and care. How we think of ourselves can make a difference. Check in with yourself. Ask yourself, can I do that today? I sometimes limit myself to 2 things in a day, but others I can do more depending on my stress levels. And if I'm hyper-focusing and I love it, then you know what we can be like? It's great. Makes it so much easier when I can just run away with it. If you can relate to any other signs of burnout, make a note so that you can help yourself. As anyone who has had burnout knows, the recovery time can be long and debilitating. So for me, preventing and reducing the impact is what I try to do now. What if I recognise some of what has been said today and I'm not diagnosed ADHD or autistic? You don't have to be autistic or ADHD to do self-care or acknowledge this is something you need. Maybe do yourself a list of what I have talked about and see what works for you. I would mention to your doctor that you experience burnout and may need some support. Counselling, therapy, courses, or maybe other avenues could be looked into, like being referred for an assessment for autism, etc., if you feel that may be right for you. Waiting lists can be long, so I suggest maybe doing online assessments just to see. This is not a proper assessment, but gives an idea. Joining a neurodivergent support group can be helpful if you feel there is more to this. The way forward. Is there a light at the end of this burnout tunnel? My answer is yes. Here's just a recipe to start practicing with. Bet you didn't know this would be a cookery course. We need a heck of a lot of acceptance and the right support. Learn to say no. Reduced workload or get someone that can help you. Reasonable adjustments like reduced work hours, sensory break room, right ways to communicate like more direct language and whatever fits that person. And masking. Masking takes that energy and can create anxiety. Identify triggers, rest and recharge, energy accounting, exercise, meditation. Certain foods like reducing sugar, caffeine, for me has helped, but for some like ADHD, as I've heard about, caffeine actually seems to help. Apps, sensory aids, consider regular counselling with an autism ADHD counsellor, join an autism and ADHD support group, I run one. Creating a bespoke care package will make all the difference. Sometimes medication is needed. There's lots more we could say there, isn't there? So this is brief and I need to stop soon. So the conclusion. What I would like you to take away from today's talk is having burnout isn't something to be ashamed of. And neither does it in any way make a person inadequate. You may need to say that to yourself a lot. For example, you wouldn't pop your goldfish on a lead and take it for a walk in full sun and expect it to survive or cope with it. It doesn't matter how beautiful the scenery might be. The brain of an ADHD or an autistic runs differently, not something we have enough awareness of. You can be successful. We all rate success differently. Healthy and live a life where this isn't the constant battle or topic of your everyday life. See it as a way of being, something that needs to have its time, space, and be understood and respected, just like we all need. And I'm probably going to say this wrong, but it's my favourite word. Takiwatanga is a Maori word for autism, and it means in their own time and space. And there is so much more, but I will leave it there. Thank you for listening. Be kind to you. Bye.